From the VCY America Radio Network, WROS out of Jacksonville, and Worldview Tube. Well, you guys know I've been pounding the desk for about a week asking for the President of the United States to address the American people with an Oval Office address, warning them, or at least walk down the long hallway into the East Room and warn the American people about the terror cells among us. You guys know I've been saying that all week. That's really been my biggest criticism of President Trump, is the lack of leadership on preparing the American people for this war on our soil. President Trump, in so many ways, is doing a magnificent job in his, well, not even first 6 months in office. And we pray it will continue. But if we have America's involvement in this war, and that opens up the terror cells in the U.S., if this spreads further to the Strait of Hormuz, energy prices skyrocket, inflation comes roaring back, the midterms, I think, could be devastating. And thus the domestic policy of President Trump ruined. And you guys know that I warned about that on this broadcast many times before he was even elected. I said, what will these guys do? What will the globalists do? What will the power brokers, the power elite, the bankers, what will they do to disrupt President Trump from making America great again, from neutering the Federal Reserve and this unconstitutional system of the Federal Reserve and our progressive income tax system? And so much more. And now we may be looking at it. We may be looking at what it is they had planned. So many of us thought, wow, the Democrats are kind of being quiet the first couple months. Well, maybe that's because they knew something was coming. And they're even kind of being quiet now. Have any of you noticed that? You don't hear a lot of Democrats saying too much. Now you got the people in the streets, but you don't see too many Democrat leaders having a whole lot to say right now. I'm not saying there aren't some out there saying something, but a lot of them are not saying a whole lot right now. You know why, I think? They want to make sure that there's plenty of airtime and ink for the MAGA movement to fight each other and to make sure that that is what gets the airtime, the newsprint. They don't want to take up the oxygen in the room. Hey, when your enemy is in the middle of destroying itself with an internal fight, step back and be quiet. I think that's what a lot of the Democrats are doing. President Trump today tweeted out that we need a special prosecutor to look into the massive election fraud of 2020. He's absolutely right. Well, do we really need a special prosecutor? Can't we just have the FBI and the DOJ do their job? So do we really need a special prosecutor? But we certainly need massive investigations, and it's well underway, thanks again, apparently, to FBI Director Kash Patel, who released this week the information that apparently our own CIA and FBI and DHS all wanted destroyed and buried during the Biden regime. Again, where are the grand juries? Where are the indictments? Where are the arrests? We have to have this. But all of that, folks, could never happen, may never happen, particularly if President Trump's party loses the midterms and he and his administration are swimming in alligators with one subpoena after another. But I will say it has now come out due to CBS News on Thursday evening, what I've been pounding the desk over all week long. All weekend, on the air 2 hours Saturday, 2 hours Sunday, and pounding the desk on all week. This main point, terror cells in the U.S. Where is this discussion? Well, it's now out, and thank you, CBS News. But why now? Why is CBS News reporting this now? How many years have I been talking about the terror cells in the U.S.? Radio shows, TV shows, documentaries, conferences, articles. Only to be called conspiracy theorist, Islamophobic, all kinds of other things. Well, I don't really care about that because I have the facts. I've interviewed so many people, former CIA analysts, former FBI agents, the former Deputy Assistant Director of the Counterterrorism Division of the FBI, former federal agents like David Gobbets, who'll be back on my show tonight, who is gone into 425 mosques in America. Oh, it's far worse than the CBS article. But why now? Predictive prophecy? Predictive programming? So when we have a massive terrorist attack, oh yeah, we were reporting on that, don't you guys know? Hasn't been reported enough that most of your local police chiefs have a clue. Most of them have no clue. I remember one well-known conservative calling me once said, "Who's this Hezbollah guy? Who's this Hezbollah guy?" I said, "It's not a guy. It's a terrorist organization of Iran." You ask most police chiefs, who's Hezbollah? Hamas. Who started Hamas? What year were they started? Who started them? They won't know the answer. Why does it matter? CARE started them. Muslim Brotherhood started them. 1928, Muslim Brotherhood founded. Albania founds it out of Egypt. 1987, they found Hamas, founded that terrorist wing. 94 comes along, Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE. And most of your police chiefs are playing patty cake with CARE and interfaith dialogue. But see, a lot of this could be cleared up with a little education by we the people, which is what we were trying to do. But we needed help. We needed help to go and reach people that would never listen to us. And that even includes people that don't like us. Because a lot of people that don't like us, they don't want to see terrorist attacks in the country. And we needed the help of elected officials. Why was there not as much talk about the terror cells in America as there has been about so many other things that MAGA has talked about? And now the mainstream media wants to do big pieces on it. I find that very suspicious, don't you? Here's a headline from the Daily Mail. Cornered Iran could unleash sinister attacks on U.S. soil as it runs out of options against Israel, insiders say. Yeah, that's right. Do you guys know what a couple dirty bombs? I'm not even talking nuclear weapons. They may have small nuclear devices in the U.S. By the way, tonight on Brain House Live, I'm going to have Dave Gobbets back on, former federal agent that's gone into 425 mosques. Remember, we sent him down to Texas, paid him his travel honorarium to go and investigate what's going on down there with Epic and Yasser Qadi and all those characters. He'll be back with me tonight on Brain House Live because you know what's going on? The discovery of more terror cells or terror tunnels. 3,000-foot tunnel from San Diego to Tijuana. And they have found like 95 of those, close to 100 of those since 1993. What's already here, folks? You know what else is going on? Iran has been working and producing fake passports, fake data to get their people into the United States of America through where? Mexico. Mexico. I'm going to say it again. You know I'm a Christian Zionist. You know I stand with Israel. And I'm happy to sell them equipment and give them intelligence and help in a defensive manner to knocking missiles down. But do we expect the IDF to come over here and fight Iran on our border with Mexico? No, we wouldn't expect them to send troops over here. Neither should they expect us to send troops over there on the ground. We got a big problem. It's not being discussed. It's not being analyzed near what it should. How many Americans know that Iran is producing fake documents and getting their people into the U.S., not to mention whatever they've smuggled in already when you're only scanning about 1% of the cargo containers in the U.S.? Another article. This is the New York Post. Border Patrol agents shut down massive drug smuggling tunnel between Tijuana and San Diego. Well, David Gobbets has been telling us that some of the leaders in the Islamic movement, they have been openly talking about going and getting gangs to be involved, giving them submachine guns and Glock switches and get them involved. How many of you are aware of this one? This one has caught several people off guard this week that I've talked to. It caught me off guard when I first found out about it. But how many of you are aware of this? This comes from the Washington Post, September 12th, 2024. Iran turns to Hell's Angels and other criminal gangs to target critics. I bet you that comes as a surprise to a lot of you. Iran turns to Hell's Angels gang and other criminal gangs to target critics. Well, this is exactly what Dave Gobbets was telling us from his intelligence and going in undercover in some of these mosques. You know, you sometimes see these biker gangs, right? And they stop and they have a bunch of them are out at a restaurant, the parking lot full of bikes, and you just think, oh, yeah, they're just out having fun. And probably the majority of them, that's exactly what's going on. They're just out having fun. And you would never think that there's some kind of connection between any of the bikers and the biker gangs and Iran. It wouldn't even cross your mind, would it? No, it really wouldn't. But apparently that's the case. And we have it backed up and documented by several of our experts, including former military man and federal agent Dave Gobbets. Here is the article from CBS. Trump administration boosts monitoring of possible Iran-backed cells in U.S. as Trump wave strikes, sources say. Then if they're monitoring them, why are they still here? If they're monitoring these groups, why are they still here? And why don't they tell us where these groups are? Oh, by the way, we want you to know, Americans, these groups are heavily concentrated in where? The Mid-South, the East Coast? Tell us where. It's a government of the people, by the people, for the people. Does that mean we should know everything? No. For intelligence sources and protection of sources and intelligence matters, not everything, but we need to know an awful lot, and we're not being told. We're being kept in the dark. The American people are being led to believe that people like us that are being vigilant, that are skilled at our craft and trade of research and documents and documentaries and investigative journalism are somehow crazy. And yet, now even the mainstream media is reporting what we have been reporting for years. Well, thanks. I guess better late than never. I guess. One of my friends from Washington, D.C. today, who's lived in D.C. his entire life. His mother actually typed up his mother was one that typed up the subpoenas for the Nixon tapes. When the DOJ man went over to the White House to get those, if they hadn't given them, they were going to, he had a legal document he was going to pull out of his suit coat. My buddy's mother's one that typed that up. He texted me today and said, I wonder if Americans realize any big groups, they're now a target. No, they don't realize that because our government isn't telling them that. We'll be right back. Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview. All right, welcome back. Glad you're with us. WorldviewRadio.com. WorldviewRadio.com. We'll be joined in a moment by Aaron Lavarco, our reporter out of Israel, as more strikes last night came into Israel and hit a major technology area, I think, that's owned by Microsoft. So he'll join us. He's brought to us by our foundation as we make regular love offerings to him. so he can be available to us at all hours of the day and night, which he is. Worldviewfoundation.com if you appreciate what we're doing with Aaron on the ground there and bringing you these free reports. Worldviewfoundation.com. Here's a headline. Times of Israel. IDF chief says Israelis must prepare for a prolonged campaign against Iran. Wait a minute. I thought this was going to be a real quick thing, that they had air dominance. And this was going to be a real fast thing that was moving much quicker than everybody anticipated. You know what? I tried talking about this last week as I was quoting Michael Yon. Wars always end up becoming bigger than expected, lasting longer than we expect, costing more than we anticipated in life, limbs, and money. And a lot of times you don't get the outcome that you want or expected. That's why many people that have seen war, like Michael Yon as a war correspondent and a guy that was in the military, hate it. Because they realize it always ends up becoming a bigger thing than you anticipated, costing you more than you ever anticipated, certainly in life and limbs. It may not even end the way you think it will. And now the truth is coming out. IDF chief says Israelis must prepare for the prolonged campaign. And now we have to worry about the suicide missions that Iran is apparently is threatening now to put on the Strait of Hormuz. And you watch energy prices skyrocket. And you want to talk about suicide bombings? Are Americans ready for that? Go back into the vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. And you'll find that we're doing extensive radio shows with experts like John Gildock, who wrote one of the premier books on the terrorism by the Islamists in Beslan, Russia, where over 300 students and teachers ended up being murdered, blown up. And we did an interview with him and have done many with him. And he was warning back in 2008 when he was on my broadcast for the first time. This is a model for America. And Americans are not being prepared. For how long have we talked about the fact that one school resource officer, many of them, by the way, I know some of them are nice people. They have children of their own. But many of them are not physically prepared, mentally prepared, strategically prepared for dealing with trained terrorists. They're not. They are in the schools of Israel, folks. Many of their IDF who are doing their time in the IDF are the teachers with their automatic weaponry within arm's reach, but not in America. 2008, we were saying, boy, America's schools really need to get up to speed. We spend so much money on education in America, and our schools are so vulnerable. I mentioned that today to Dave Gobbets. He said, oh, let's get into that tonight, because you're right. So much that we should have been preparing for years and years and years ago, and God forbid this actually starts to unfold, and maybe it won't. I pray it doesn't. But we're going to look back and say all the things we should have been preparing for the way Israel has prepared. Now, Israel's not perfect. They let October 7th happen at some level. At some level, that got through, despite the warnings that those gals were trying to make from those watchtowers to the higher up command. But Israel, we should be duplicating a lot of what they do. But it's hard to bring that to the attention when the people that are trying to warn are being ignored, when the people that are trying to do the warning are mocked. But now CBS News wants you to know this is all a possibility. Well, good for CBS. Joining me now is Dr. Andy Woods, and we'll have Aaron join us. Dr. Woods, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Brandon, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
So things are prophetically, the stage seems to be being set. What is your, when you watch this week, what is your prophetic mindset saying here?
Well, Ezekiel in chapters 38 and 39, chapters that we talk about frequently,
Mm-hmm.
says that in the last days, Persia, which we think is Iran, is going to invade Israel in the last days. So when I look at something like that, I say, well, this is not something that can happen in a vacuum. There has to be pre-existing tension between Persia and Israel. Well, that's exactly what we've seen over the last week or so. Building tension. The Israelis, doing a precision strike, and Iran, establishing and targeting, population centers and that kind of thing. And it's the same mindset I had last year when Iran launched projectiles from its own borders into the borders of Israel. And it just showed me that Iran is not, she's not working through proxies anymore. She's not working through the Houthis and Hezbollah. She does work through that, but the mask is off, is what I'm trying to say. And so it makes the whole Gog Magog scenario, all the more credible. And then you throw into the mix some things I've read recently about Putin. Putin wants to come and help the Iranians. And so there's the nexus between Persia and Rosh, who we think is Russia, which this alliance is forming, between those two countries as well. So that's kind of how I look at all of these things. I look at them as stage setting, for a drama that God is very specific in His Word, will transpire. And I think we're in the general season where that whole scenario is very, very credible.
Mm. Well, you mentioned Russia. Russia has said our response to assassination of Khomeini would be extremely negative. That's just one of many things he has said. By the way, did you know that a bunch of North Koreans have just been flown over to Russia to help make more drones, military drones? North Koreans flown over to Russia to do that. But yeah, Russia says our response to the assassination of the Khomeini would be extremely negative. So for any of those doubting, Russia, and I know we have said, look, Russia, Putin has showed some restraint and all this with Ukraine and whatnot, but that doesn't mean that he's on our side. He's got a strong alliance, Russia does, with Iran, North Korea, China. They're all in that BRICS banking system together as well.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another one. Iran makes suicidal bombing type threat to block the Strait of Hormuz if the U.S. enters the war. Josh Hawley, the U.S. Senator from Missouri, has come out against U.S. action in Iran. I have to tell you something, folks. I'm starting to wonder how many of our guys are now getting intel about what's here in the country, what our sniffers are picking up. You guys know we have sniffers in the U.S., right? Like you hear about these planes being sent over there in Iran to sniff the air, test the air. We have those kind of things here too, right? Have they picked up on anything? Have they gotten intel about what's here? Have they even been threatened in back channels? Well, let's go over to Aaron, who's live in Israel tonight, Israel time, because missiles have hit over there again. Aaron, welcome back. You had more missiles coming in last night, and this seems to be a little bit of a growing trend the last 2 days, more missiles getting through. And now one of your big IDF guys says Israelis must prepare for a prolonged campaign against Iran. Some kind of Microsoft outlet was hit last night, Israel time, correct?
Yeah. What's happening, Brandon? And great to be back with you. Good to see you again, Andy. What's happening is the amount of missiles is declining. The number is declining, but the quality of missiles is changing. Not only are they ballistic, I forgot the name of, not supersonic, but they are,
hypersonic.
yeah, maybe it's the hypersonic ones. And that is a concern. That is what are raining down on us. I mean, they're taking out buildings and even streets to some degrees. This is concerning. I also heard today that the Iranians are hiding or keeping a number of, quite a number of missiles underground, and they're waiting for the possibility of Trump and the Americans hitting Iran, and that they will have some up their sleeve to fire back with. But be that as it may, yes, it is concerning, but this is war. This is what we expected. And you know what? We should look at the cup half full. We're exactly a week into the war. We have come a long way in a week. We've done an incredible amount of damage. I was just listening to the Crown Prince, the son of the Shah that was overthrown. He's saying it's just a matter of time. It's not if, but when. And he's waiting for the people to rise up in Iran and go out on the streets. But here, yeah, we're on our edges. The alarms went off this afternoon. Very, very concerning. And you're right. Some of the missiles did get through. And like I reported yesterday, our Iron Dome is very effective. But when you're talking about these supersonic missiles, it's almost impossible to get them. That's where we need the laser dome. People keep praying that laser dome will be perfected and perfected soon. So that's what's going on here. Our brave soldiers are fighting hard. Our Air Force, they're getting ready for another major attack. And Bibi Netanyahu, he's upping the talk that this regime has definitely got to go. So there's no question.
And it sounds like Khomeini is a dead man walking, right?
Absolutely. That's exactly what I was going to say. He's got a target on him. So
and negotiations between the parties has fallen apart again, because Iran's saying we're not going to negotiate while Israel's hitting us. Well, of course. Why would Israel stop and give them chances to resupply?
Yeah. Now, and you know what? That would be a big mistake right now. And again, the Crown Prince was saying, why give the Ayatollah, what was the term he used? A second breath. Mm-hmm. He said he always seems to get another chance. Now we cannot afford to do that. Can I just comment about what you and Dr. Andy were talking about, Russia? The other interesting thing is China, who 90% of their oil they get from the Iranians. They are actually pulling out. 1,600 Chinese workers evacuated from Iran, and the Chinese government they're in the process of deciding whether they're going to continue to deal with Iran or whether they're going to move on.
We'll be right back. Don't go away. We live in uncertain times. In fact, we live at a time when our own governments all over the world are warning us that there could be big problems with our power grid. World War III seems to be right on the horizon. Let me ask you this. Do you have a satellite phone? Should communications go down with cell towers? Do you have a satellite phone to get a hold of that college student or your spouse who travels, whatever it might be, to get a hold of your senior adult parents? We have satellite phones at worldviewtalk.com, and you get the satellite phone for free when you sign up for their very reasonable payment programs for the service. Sign up for the service with a reasonable contract, get the satellite phone for free. Worldviewtalk.com. You'll also find they have, well, what I now have, which is a solar generator. Yeah, I have a gas generator, an LP propane generator, but what if that goes down? I want to back up to my backup. So I now have a solar generator as well. You'll find them at worldviewtalk.com. Check it out today, worldviewtalk.com. All right, welcome back. Glad you're with us. Worldview Radio, website worldviewradio.com. Dr. Woods, I read an article today. Sounds like you've read the same article from our friend Amy Meck over at Rare Foundation, talking about a pro-Christian conference a pro-Israel conference that had to be canceled that was going to be in, I think, Texas, but had to be canceled due to credible terror threats. Now, if I understood this, it actually got moved to a church. The church was like, "Hey, we'll take you guys over here." I don't know if their original venue canceled on them or what. We're like, "Hey, we'll take it. Bring it over here. Bring it over here." But even the church, apparently, from what I'm reading, unless I have it wrong, felt like the threats they were receiving were so credible they even had to back out. Do I have that right?
Yeah, I think that's the gist of it. And it's really a Zionist conference. And, there were so many, and they've been doing this regularly, kind of like the event in Boulder, Colorado recently, where that guy showed up, illegal immigrant, Muslim, if I remember right, inflicting Molotov cocktails, etc., on those that were attending the event. I mean, it's the same kind of thing here, except it was a bunch of threats. And the threats, were so significant that they just had to opt not to, have the event. And so that's the sort of sick, twisted, demented climate that we're disintegrating into, even here in the United States of America, where if you publicly stand for Israel, then you get all these threats and actual physical opposition. And so we're really living in, I think I would put it this way, we're moving into uncharted territory. I don't recall this kind of thing becoming as prominent as it is here in the West, but that's what we deal with now on a day-by-day basis.
Absolutely. We're getting reports, Aaron, of 5.1 magnitude earthquake rattling Iran's capital region. Are you getting that?
Yeah, I got that report. They get a lot of earthquakes, don't they, the Iranians? It seems to be they do.
Yeah, but a lot of people think that they're testing nuclear weapons.
I know. Well, that's where I was going with this. It's just uncanny. Either they're on a major tectonic plate under the Earth's surface, or something fishy is going on.
Yeah. Well, I guess at the United Nations, Israel and Iran to UN will keep fighting. So Israel and Iran are agreeing on that. We're going to keep fighting.
Yeah. I watched that spat between our ambassador, Danny Danon, and the Iranian ambassador. Yeah, they are not backing down. Isn't that interesting? After all what's happened, they're either going to go down with the sinking ship, or they have some trumps up their sleeve. In Bibi Netanyahu's interview, I think it was with Fox, Bibi said that you don't know how close the Iranians got. And I quote, I'm do my best to quote what Bibi said. He said, we had reports that they were, the moment they were going to perfect a uranium and make it into a weaponized bomb, they were going to sell it to their proxies overseas. That's what Bibi Netanyahu said. I quote him. And so he said, this is, and he likes using this quote, but he said, that is terrorism on steroids. That's exactly what he said. When you get these weaponized uranium handed out on the streets to these terrorists they don't care if they blow themselves up. We all know what these jihadists believe. That's how close Bibi Netanyahu was saying we were. So that was in his defense of why Israel went and and started the attack on Iran, as if we have to defend ourselves. But one positive thing is it seems that the world at large has a relative sympathy for Israel, but let's hope that it doesn't turn, just like the first couple of weeks after October the 7th. Let's hope that some snake doesn't come in and somehow turn this against us. And
by the way, speaking of snakes, look at this one. Arizona governor vetoes bill to hold teachers liable for Jew hatred in schools. Governor Hobbs is frighteningly wrong, says Morton Klein, national president of the ZOA. Dr. Woods, why would you? Well, of course, we know why. The bill, as I understand it, just simply said, teachers, you cannot use your classroom to promote anti-Semitism, to promote Jew hatred. And you'll be held accountable if you use your class for that purpose. Do I have it right?
Yeah, it was a completely reasonable piece of legislation. No anti-Semitism in the public schools, in the books. And of course, this Katie Hobbs, and she's a real, test case in and of itself. I mean, am I allowed to say this on the air? I'm not even sure if she's a legitimately elected person.
Yeah, I think you're allowed to say that.
All right. She was supervising as Secretary of State her own election process running for governor.
That's right.
So I have to me, she's just a joke. I have zero respect for her anyway. But having said all that, it was a reasonable piece of legislation. And there she is acting like the puppet that she is of the left. She vetoes it. And the article points out that if this had been some piece of legislation protecting Muslims from anti-Islam in the classroom, or, LGBTQU plus, protecting them from, negative speech or whatever in the classroom, we know she would sign that into law. But in this case, she didn't, because she is standing up for the teachers union. And so she's I don't know how to be nice about it today, Brandon. She's a disgusting, despicable, illegitimate Jezebel type figure. And, she's just following her basic character, which is Jew hatred.
Well, I wish you would tell us how you really feel, Dr. Woods.
Well, I wish the people of Arizona would rise up and do something about it.
Well, the problem is I think there's such massive voter fraud in Arizona. I really do.
Yeah.
I know that's, again, supposedly something you're not supposed to say, but I think the evidence is pretty overwhelming that was going on in Arizona.
Well, I saw the videos of them in the middle of the night showing up with mass amounts of ballots, pulling them out of trucks and dumping them into the public mailing thing where you're supposed to put the ballots. And this is how Katie Hobbs became governor. Carrie Lake, would have been an excellent choice, but the will of the people was squelched, in my opinion. And then she's acting as the Secretary of State, which is supposed to police the election process for her own election. Can anybody say conflict of interest?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I'll keep my mouth shut.
No, you're doing great. You're doing great, Pastor. Pastor Woods. See, we need more pastors like this. We really do. And God bless the ones that are out there like him. Look at this. Iran orders thousands of tons of ballistic missile ingredients from China.
Yeah.
Dr. Woods, if you had to guess, where do you think this is all going? Do you think in a couple weeks it'll be over with and we'll all be going, whew, we dodged that bullet? Or do you think this is is this the season? Is this the season for a broader war that sets the stage for a world leader to walk on the stage and promise peace?
Well, obviously, I think the latter, because I think everything that happens is setting the stage for the end time scenario. But I am optimistic about something. The Israelis are very different than America.
Mm-hmm.
The Israelis allow their military to win. Our country doesn't allow our American soldiers to win anymore. Ever since I would trace it back to Vietnam, etc. And we put our people into harm's way, and then we put all these handcuffs on them, what they can do and what they can't do. My understanding of the Israelis, and Aaron can comment on this, much more accurately than I can, is when they go in to do something, they're in it to win it. And so I think Iran is going to get a real black eye through this, but I don't see Iran just disappearing because she's too significant on the prophetic horizon.
Mm. I want to go to one other article, Dr. Woods, and that is one on Palantir. I don't know if you watched the military parade last weekend, but I watched just a little bit of it, and because I was on the air for some of it. And at one point, I saw a big Palantir ad, like Palantir. So I think the whole thing was paid for by private, corporations. The $45 million people are screaming about. I think it was all paid for by private companies. Palantir being one of them. And here's a headline from Reason.com: how Palantir is expanding the surveillance state. If you think the government will use these tools to track illegal immigrants, think again. I mean, Dr. Woods, you and I could go 100 different directions today, but almost every article is stage setting, as you put it.
Yeah, there is a surveillance society coming. Revelation 13, 16 through 18, is very clear on that. And this technology that we're talking about here, as I understand it, and I'm not a technologically sophisticated or savvy person, but little old me understands it this way. It allows these three-letter agencies, by way of information, to all coalesce and cooperate across the board, which makes surveillance of people easy, or easier, I guess I should put it that way. And this is being sold to us as, boy, look at what we can do to stop fentanyl. Look at what we can do to, police illegal immigrants. Look at what we can do to take people with that are illegals that also have a criminal record and get them out of the country. But we all know how this is going to end. We know that this technology at some point is going to end up in the wrong person's hands, and he will use it to bring in a surveillance society. And just because the Trump administration might be using these things for good doesn't mean there won't be a subsequent administration to come on the scenes and use these things for evil. I mean, wasn't it George W. Bush that gave us the Patriot Act?
Yep.
And at the time, everybody said, hey, the Patriot Act is great. Look at what we can do to stop Islamic terror. Well, it was a subsequent administration or administrations that turned the Patriot Act on the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
Just ask the
which
J6
we were on this
protesters.
network. We were on this network warning about that at the time. Me and Kirby Anderson.
Yeah.
We were on here, as he was my guest, warning against it, and people would criticize us as anti-communist. Or as being pro-communist or not a patriot. We're like, really?
History. Well, I'm just saying history vindicated you, and I'm sensing the same thing with this whole Palantir thing.
I agree. 1-800-347-9829. Phone line's now open. 1-800-347-9829. Your thoughts, your comments, your questions. I'd like to hear from some of you as to what do you think? Very conservative U.S. Senator Josh Hawley is saying, no, I don't think America should strike Iran. I think we can be involved defensively. I think we can provide intelligence. All the things I've been saying this week is what a growing chorus of people are thinking, which makes me really wonder what some of them know about the massive vulnerabilities to our country. Remember how many months we were talking about America being blackmailed? How many months we've been talking, or years now, about America being blackmailed? And I wonder if a lot of our guys who get the intelligence briefings on Capitol Hill have been told about what's really here now. Because it's really interesting to watch some of these Republican senators and others say, I don't know about that. Your thoughts, folks. What should we do? What would you like to see President Trump do or not do? 1-800-347-9829. Be sure to stay tuned for Crosstalk coming up at the top of the hour at vcy.org. Worldview Radio will be right back.
Introducing the Sentry Wellness System, the ultimate under-sink water treatment solution designed with you in mind. Say goodbye to harmful toxins and hello to water enriched with essential nutrients like calcium and magnesium. Enjoy the benefits of increased pH for on-demand alkalinity, all from a zero-waste system that fits seamlessly into your home. Installation is a breeze, taking just 15 minutes, so you can have clean, healthy, great-tasting water straight from your tap. Perfect for apartments, homes, rentals, and even RVs. Elevate your hydration and well-being with the Sentry Wellness System because you deserve the best in every drop.
Sentry H2O. Tap into wellness.
All right, 1-800-347-9829, 1-800-347-9829. Your thoughts, your comments, your questions. By the way, I think we might I've just gotten a lot closer to holding a worldview rally in Des Moines, Iowa this coming fall. Maybe we'll go to Northern Illinois. I don't know, we were thinking about somewhere in South Dakota. Now we're kind of thinking maybe Northern Illinois. I don't know. I think that sounds like a great weekend. Des Moines, Iowa on one night, Saturday night, Northern Illinois on a Sunday night. I don't know. But we're getting closer to making it signing a contract for something in Des Moines, Iowa, folks. Getting back out there doing worldview rallies. 1-800-347-9829. Your thoughts, your comments, your questions. Aaron Lavarco from Israel, lighttothenationsministry.com. Dr. Andy Woods, andywoodsministries.org. Let's go to John, line 1 in Texas. Hi, John. Thanks for calling in.
Hi, Brandon. Thanks for taking my call. I'd like to ask Dr. Wood, Jesus said, when you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of Daniel the prophet. Just so we let him understand. So where in Daniel is Jesus referencing?
Where in Daniel is what? I'm sorry?
Where in Daniel is Jesus referencing?
Where in Daniel is Jesus referencing? He's quoting Matthew 24 and referencing Daniel.
Yeah, he's quoting Daniel chapter 9, verse 27, which clearly says the tribulation period will be 7 years. What starts it is the covenant between the Antichrist and unbelieving Israel. What ends it is the second advent. And what happens right in the middle is the Antichrist's desecration of the temple, basically replicating what one of the great villains in Hebrew history perpetrated, a man named Antiochus Epiphanes. And once that desecration of the temple happens, the Jewish nation is to flee, I believe, into Jordan, modern day Petra, where they're going to be supernaturally protected for 3.5 years.
Great question. Great answer. Rich, line 4. Hi, Rich from Wisconsin. Thanks for calling in, Rich.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I'm going to be as vague as I can and still communicate information. The Chicagoland area is ripe for dirty bomb nuclear terrorism, with the cities being surrounded on all sides except for Lake Michigan with power plants, nuclear power plants, and all of the waste is still there. And there's another facility directly west of downtown Chicago, which has lots of nuclear waste from other power plants, which the federal government hasn't done anything about yet. And I'm just calling to say, watch when stuff starts, watch what happens there, because it's a ripe place for dirty bomb or even conventional explosives would create massive havoc in the Chicagoland area.
Rich, you're a great caller. And if their government and our federal government had been concentrating on what government should be doing, they could efficiently clean this stuff up, get it where it cannot be accessed. But of course, we know the state government of Illinois is so corrupt and so busy in Chicago defending as a sanctuary state and spending so much money giving housing and money to illegal invaders. I mean, this is a perfect strategy of America's enemies, have us so distracted, or put the Marxists into power, the CCP people into power, the Red Green Axis, the Islamists as well into power, and then let these kind of things happen. It's a natural result of not fulfilling a Romans 13 purpose of government. Would you agree?
I would agree, but I could just say one more to add another level to it. It was Jimmy Carter back in 1979 that stopped the General Electric company that built the facility to reprocess spent fuel directly west of Chicago, about 50 miles, stopped them from doing it. And so now that plant has been sitting there since 1979, just, I'll say, waiting, and I've been in the facility a number of times, waiting for something to happen. And
are you the only one that has this concern, Rich? Rich, are you? Have other people been warning about this? In other words, question would be too: can you not become a whistleblower?
They've got to know about this. It's a federal facility.
But wait a minute, that was the key word.
All of it's been halted.
The key word: federal facility. You're assuming that people in the federal government are smart, and a lot of them maybe are, but a lot of them aren't.
Oh, I am not assuming the federal government agencies are smart, but that is no. But you're right. But I mean, they were the ones involved in the licensing and withholding the license, and it's a large facility, and I just can't. I've been cautious to even say anything. I've tried calling calling in for years because I see this is going to happen. I was a teacher, and I said for years when we were teaching on nuclear issues, I said, watch the news. Someday this plant is going to be terrorized. Something's going to happen there.
Wow.
And I mean, for 40 years, 45 years, it's been basically in mothballs, and it's filled with high-level radioactive waste.
Rich, hold the line. I want Dalton, whoever's at the board, to give you my cell phone number. You feel free to text me anything else you think we ought to know, or get to people like Marjorie Taylor Greene or other members of Congress we have regular contact with, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Someone give you my cell number, will you? And Rich, when you text me, let me know that's you texting so we can put you on our phone. Wow. Lori in Michigan, line 2. Hi, Lori. Hi, Lori.
Hi.
Yes.
I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but when we were traveling across the desert, later Phil Haney told he was we were going to Cairo, across from the Red Sea to Cairo, and the Egyptian military came in to protect us. Phil Haney told me quite a few years ago that we had faced the eye of the dragon. ISIS was building up. But the guy that was the tour guide, his name was Muhammad, told me, you are the great Satan, and Israel is the little Satan, and we hate you. And so when I was traveling a lot in the Middle East, I got the sentiment that it wouldn't make any difference what we do or don't do, because we are just as hated as Israel, and we're all on the same playing field, on the same level. To the Islamists, we're with them.
And you're former military, right?
I'm sorry to bear bad news, but thanks for your program
You're
today.
former military, right, Lori?
Yes. Yep.
Call in more often, will you? Great call. Diane in Sioux Falls, sorry to get to you because I did not want to rush Rich off at all. Startling phone call from Rich, guys. LightToTheNationsMinistry.com, AndyWoodsMinistries.org. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us. Hope you guys will stay tuned for Crosstalk with Jim Schneider at VCY.org. Take care. And we're back with WROS out of Jacksonville, Florida, in the Worldview Tube audience. Let's go back to our guys. Aaron, respond to the phone caller from Wisconsin, Rich, on dirty bombs, nuclear waste. That's a pretty startling phone call.
Yeah, he's screwed on. He's obviously like all of our callers, to be watchmen on the walls, to know what's going on out there, and where these jihadists and Islamic radicals are, who are chanting like Laurie from Michigan was saying. They're not hiding it. They're burning American flags. They're burning Israeli flags. Death to America, death to Israel. And yet Joe Biden gives Iran millions of dollars. It's startling. This has been going on for decades. It still shocks me how the president of the United States could do this. But thank God that the tide is turning. And but yeah, we have to pray for the National Home Guard, your national security, that they also get their radars going, and that anything that is planted gets exposed before something disastrous could happen. I think today, Brandon, I heard that there was some kind of attack in London, an Islamic attack. Did you hear about that?
No, I didn't. Logan, have you heard about that? No, I haven't. I'll look it up. But before you do that, I did just pick up the graphic you sent me. U.S. Navy assets in the Middle East. Woo! Look at that graphic.
And the latest I got was on the way now to the I think it's the Eastern Mediterranean, is the USS where is it? Well, I think it's on that map, but let me double check. Yeah.
Is it the Nimitz? The Nimitz?
Yeah, the Nimitz. That was the one. Thank you. It's on its way as well.
Man, when you look at that map, Dr. Woods, the first thing I think is, wow, things are pretty well open in the Indo-Pacific for China, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, absolutely. And that's why a lot of prophecy teachers don't go there, but I do. I think China, and John Walvoord said this in his Revelation commentary, China could very well be the kings of the East, spoken of in the, the sixth trumpet judgment and sixth golden bowl of wrath judgment. And what's interesting, and it goes even back to that article that you had up earlier about how Iran reach the nuclear threshold that they're now at with the help of China. What's interesting is how all of these players are coming together simultaneously with an equal hostile intention towards Israel, and they're cooperating with each other. I mean, that's the fascinating thing for me to watch as the alliance is developing.
But you also believe, don't you, that the kings from the East is Babylon, like the Magi coming from the East?
Absolutely. But I think it's Babylon that summons this giant army from east of the Euphrates.
Because that's where the kings of the earth have been located as the Antichrist has set up his New World Order headquarters there in Babylon.
Right. And Babylon, Iraq, is not one of the invaders, as far as we can tell, in Ezekiel 38 and 39. The Hebrew name for that area is Shinar. That's not found in Ezekiel's list. And the reason I don't think it's found is because that's the headquarters where the Antichrist, through satanic powers, is summoning the nations of the earth.
Mm-hmm. So it's just sending out the orders from there.
That's how I would interpret it, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Aaron, before we let you go, my friend, what do you anticipate? Your own leadership, major IDF guy says Israelis must prepare for a prolonged campaign. What are folks doing on the ground there? What are they saying? You get out much into cafes and visit with any of them? I guess you visit with them in the bomb shelters, don't you?
Yeah, actually, that's where most of our these days conversations go on, because a lot of restaurants have just been closed down. Actually, today was the first day that a lot of things started to open up again. But then, of course, in the afternoon, we had sirens going off. Beersheba, Haifa was attacked. Yeah, I saw Bibi is saying, and our defense minister, Israel Katz, is saying, this is going to go on for, he said, we planned a 2-week strategic plan. So we're 1 week into it. And like I said, we've done incredible things in a week's time.
Yes, you have. But wars always go longer than you expect, right?
Right. And I think we're going to be needing to expect that. And maybe that's why the Americans are on their way. Now, I know you don't want the Americans to get involved, but maybe Donald Trump knows the same, that it looks like that Iran are not backing down. It's not going to go as fast. And maybe they are going to come and do some real deep collateral damage, not to give the Iranians a second breath, not to give them another life. Yeah.
As always, thank you guys. Hope you'll support what we're doing here, folks. WorldviewFoundation.com. It's so important we have your support. WorldviewFoundation.com. Take care.
Built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon House.
Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing